on David Montgomery, and they spent the 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs. And so they didn't have room for DeAndre Swift, and they were able to get a 4th-round pick for him. And week 1, it was Kenneth Gainwell who was the starting running back, but Gainwell couldn't go because he was injured last night, and so the baton was passed to DeAndre Swift. And the Eagles kind of went in they loaded up on running back in the offseason. They let Miles Sanders leave, and I mentioned they already had Kenneth Gainwell, but they went out and acquired Rashad Penny, who was a high draft pick by the Seattle Seahawks, but again couldn't quite stay healthy there, and so the Seahawks went in a different direction. But they made that trade for DeAndre Swift, and I just thought that was a perfect marriage of skill set and offense. And I was kind of surprised they were still wanting to lean on Kenneth Gainwell when the season started. And so Gainwell misses action because of injury. DeAndre Swift steps in to the starting spot, and he was magnificent. 28 carries for 175 yards, averaged well over 6 yards a carry, had a touchdown, had a long of 43. And he looked terrific. Now, the Philadelphia offensive line was outstanding last night. And there was an emasculating drive in that game that was actually almost laugh out loud fun to watch, because after the Vikings took a 7-3 lead, it's like Philadelphia got irritated, and they, I think, all at once decided that they were maybe trying to get a little too cute on offense, and they went on a 16-play, 75-yard drive where they kept running the football over and over and over and over and over again. The drive started at their own 25. See, DeAndre Swift for 7, Swift for 3, then a pass to Swift for 1, Swift up the middle for 6, Swift for 4, Swift for 3, Boston Scott for 6, Boston Scott for 4, then Jalen Hurts for 8, Boston Scott for 5, Hurts incomplete. Then Hurts actually completed a pass to A.J. Brown for 11 yards. Then Swift for 7, Swift for 5, Swift for 4, and then Jalen Hurts with the quarterback sneak up the middle for the touchdown. And Minnesota could do nothing to stop DeAndre Swift and the Eagles' running attack on that drive, or really the whole night. But I mean, that was some old school football there. That was fun to watch. And now DeAndre Swift, he has to stay healthy. And I sure as hell didn't get him. I wanted him, but he just didn't. I didn't get him on my fantasy squad. But if you have DeAndre Swift on your fantasy squad, as long as he stays healthy, he could end up being a wonderful player for your fantasy squad and for the Philadelphia Eagles. And really, that makes him a little, I don't know, a little scarier. And maybe I think more of DeAndre Swift than others, but I just feel like if he could stay healthy, he's got such a unique skill set. And if you remember, back when we were having the debate before the draft took place, when Nate Bukaty was defending the Chiefs and the rumors that they might take a first-round or a running back in the first round, you were defending the idea of the Chiefs taking DeAndre Swift,
yes,
not Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
That's right. That's right.
And so you know, when that pick happened, it wasn't so much that people were surprised that the Chiefs took a running back. It was somewhat of a surprise that was the running back they took, at least from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure internally there was no surprise because Clyde was probably always their guy. But there was a lot of buzz that the Chiefs were interested in DeAndre Swift. Maybe those are smoke screens, and maybe they were never interested in him, but that's what the discussion point was. And that's leading up to the draft. I have the recollection of we'd have different guests on, and I would throw out there, okay, so what if the Chiefs decide to go running back with DeAndre Swift? And you would defend it, and some people would agree with you or disagree with you, but the talking point was DeAndre Swift. It was never, hey, what if they take Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Like,
Never mentioned him once, I don't believe.
I mean, we maybe just had had a list and mentioned these are the different running backs, but everyone kept landing on DeAndre Swift. Yeah. And having watched him at Georgia up close, I mean, I still wasn't interested in him in the first round, but I liked what I saw. I liked the player. I liked the running back. I liked him in Detroit. He just couldn't stay healthy. But man, if it comes together for him in Philadelphia, that just gives them. Oh, you saw it last night. Just pounding the rock with him. And so, and the score was closer than it needed to be, but I was really super impressed with the Eagles' physicality, with their offensive line. They were bullying. I mean, that was a bully drive. They just kept over. Were you guys watching at that point? It's over and over, and even the announce crew was laughing about it, and Kirk Herbstreit mentioned Al Michaels, like this is like a game that you would have called 30 years ago, Which, yeah, right. So like somewhere up in heaven, Marty Schottenheimer was like, yes, yes.
13 runs out of 16 plays. Let's go.
Give it to him again, please. So yeah, I mean it was impressive stuff from the Eagles, and in both games that we've watched with them. Against the Patriots and the Vikings, I don't feel like we saw their A game, but they're just so damn talented that even when they're they get off to a slow start, or even when they're not crisp like they normally are, they're just so talented everywhere. With Devontae Smith 4 for 131, AJ Brown's gonna have an off night. AJ Brown's gonna be arguing with Jalen Hurts on the sideline, but. The star tonight will be DeAndre Swift, or our big play guy will be, whoever, right? At some point, and like Dallas Goedert hasn't done anything really so far this year. Right? There'll be a game when he has 2 touchdowns, and so just watching him, and then of course watching Justin Jefferson, who's tremendous. It was an interesting game last night, but the Eagles again showed why they're just so talented. Now the Vikings, they look. Kirk Cousins is good. Justin Jefferson's a stud. Jordan Addison looks like he's going to be a great pick, but they're 0-2.
Well, we all that talk about the primetime Kirk Cousins, they had 0 running game on the flip side. Minnesota, they ran for 28 yards.
Yeah,
he threw for 364, but it goes to show you it still does matter if you can run the ball sometimes.
You also have to try to run the ball.
Yep.
They had 9 carries.
Yep.
And so that's a quick bailout.
Right.
But the storyline there is they've had Alexander Madison, ready to roll as a backup to take over because they didn't want to pay Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see if that ends up blowing up in their face.
Right.
But
that Eagles team, you feel like you said, they look better this week than they did last week. And it's kind of scary because they're going to look even better probably in the weeks to come.
They can just jack with teams and then turn it on and still have enough to beat them.
And not only do they have talent at the skill positions, they're, as you mentioned, up front. They're good. They're good up front. That is a complete roster, isn't it?
You know what? And the Vikings put good pressure on Hurts. I mean, Hunter had 3 sacks. He had sacks on back-to-back plays. They had 5 sacks total, but it's just – and again – I didn't feel like we were watching the Eagles even A- game. They had some flaws, but there's so much talent that talk about the top to bottom who's the most talented roster. Wasn't that the argument going into the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
No, the Eagles have the better roster. The Chiefs have the better quarterback. Chiefs have the better coach, but they have the better roster top to bottom. I mean, you're seeing that, and their run game may have become even more dynamic now with a healthy DeAndre Swift after his 175 yards last night on the ground as the Eagles beat the Vikings, as the Eagles march towards a rematch in the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm already previewing that months ahead of time. Remember, you heard it here first. Back after this on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You're listening to the Border Patrol.
What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim.
I may not make that trip up there. I will not make that trip up there.
Not going to make it.
No. Nope. If I didn't have to get up at 4:30 for a flight tomorrow morning, then maybe. But I'm gonna.
What do you got on the itinerary besides going to the game? Anything fun?
None ya.
None your business.
That's
All
right.
Okay.
None your business. I can tell you that right now.
I got family in Jacksonville.
No, do you?
Yeah. You can say hi to my Uncle Wolf.
What?
My Uncle Wolf. His real name is Steve Givens. But
Sounds
we
like
call him Uncle Wolf.
It sounds like a children's book.
Beware
Say hello
of
to my
Uncle Wolf.
Say hello to my Uncle Wolf.
Yeah.
Also sounds like a pickup line that you might have used at Westport.
Yeah.
Hey, say hello to my Uncle Wolf. What's that mean?
That
Find
didn't really
out.
ever get me anywhere.
I was reminded, speaking of Westport, I was reminded that, I don't know why, but Susan and I sat down to watch Roadhouse the other night.
Oh, nice.
It was on. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's on, I'm
It's the
going to
only
watch
reason
it.
you need.
And so it had been a while since I had seen it from the beginning. And as we were watching it, I reminded her, because I thought she would think it was funny. And then she did not think it was funny. That before I met her, and I'm surprised because I go, this shows you that I really liked you. Caesar and I and some of my friends, we would, make our way around Westport or Woody's or, what was it back then? I can't remember. Senior Frogs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so.
America's Pub.
Really?
I don't know.
I would not always give my name.
Yeah.
And so many times I had a popular one. I was Ricky Santana from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
I was here to visit my cousin.
Yep.
Yeah. But one that I would like to lean on is sometimes I would present myself as Brad Wesley.
Brad Wesley.
And so Brad Wesley was a big one for me. That was one of my alter egos. To where if I was, I don't want to get too far into that. What situation to call for?
He was the rich guy of the town that ran the town, right?
He ran Jasper, Missouri. Lived across the street from Emmett.
Yeah. Had the big monster truck.
Farmer.
Did he have
What's
the big
that?
monster truck?
It wasn't really his. It was
One of
his
his
henchmen, right?
Yeah.
Played by Ben Gazzara, who's a favorite of my mother's. But I kind of, I used to, sometimes I meet a girl, I told her my name was Brad Wesley, and I lived out in Jasper, Missouri. And she said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Well, if I was with a friend and a friend met a young lady, and then I had to kind of be there with him because that young lady was with other ladies, and I was not interested, but I had to kind of be there and be a wingman and talk."
Mm-hmm.
So what's your friend's name? Oh, Brad. That's Brad Wesley. Where's he live? He lives out in Jasper.
Yeah.
Nobody ever really quite knew where Jasper, Missouri was.
Right.
It's where the Double Deuce is.
Right. Of course.
Or Red's Auto Parts.
Right.
Did you know that the guy that played Red's Auto Parts? Remember in that was Kelly Lynch's uncle in there.
Yeah.
That was played by Red West, who was one of Elvis's bodyguards. Who
no way.
in real life betrayed him, writing a tell-all book that broke Elvis's heart. So, I got lots of stories, people,
Did it for
about
the money.
Roadhouse.
Man, you do.
Right. The name's Dalton.
Dalton.
And that's special because he was played by Jeff Healey, the Jeff Healey Band, with the wonderful hit Angel Eyes, one of the first songs Susan and I danced to. And at one point, I sang that song to her to try to win her heart. And she told me, "I will continue to go out with you if you never sing again." I said, well,
Whatever it takes.
that wasn't the
You do what you got to do.
idea, but fine. Angel Eyes, I'm sorry. Play Angel Eyes when we come back, maybe. I don't know. One of the most underrated songs ever. That's a
Good song.
Sweet, slow dancing song. Rest in peace, Jeff Healey. Jeff Healey Band.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us.
I did not know that.
Don't say nothing bad about him.
Oh, I wouldn't. Wouldn't dream
He
of it.
provided this song and wonderful scenes in that movie. Now, and also Terry Funk, who played one of the Brad Wesley's henchmen, I told you, recognized as one of the greatest, most iconic professional wrestlers of all time. He passed away a couple of weeks ago.
No,
I was reminded he had
that.
some great scenes in there. And then Marco just turned off that song that was going to give me goosebumps. Let's hear from someone else that gives me goosebumps. Before we break, let me hear one clip from Spags. Spags gives us all goosebumps, doesn't he? Like
Sure
when
he
you met
does.
your wife for the first time.
Oh,
you hear
man.
Spags talk football, and it gives you just, good vibes throughout your body. Spags was asked yesterday how Chris Jones looked, so let's hear it right from Spags talking about Chris Jones being back.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Chris wanted to, we got a lot of energy, right? He's well rested. He wanted to go every play yesterday, but we had to kind of tone it down on him. But he looked good.
What are your plans for him on Sunday?
Well, we'll get through today and tomorrow and see where he is. I'll be curious to talk with him and see how he feels, condition. That's the biggest thing, right? Is the condition. The one thing we don't want to do, or we want to protect against as best as we can, is to not put him in a situation where we get him hurt. We certainly don't want that. And we all know, look, he hasn't had a lot of work up till this point. We'll get as much as we can, and then try to be smart on game day.
What's a reasonable snap count for a situation?
I don't want to put a number on it. I really don't. I had 1 year I was in, I forget where I was. We had a linebacker that didn't play very much. It was like, we're gonna keep you at 25, 30, played 60 plays. Yeah, it was like, okay, I don't know what, I can't remember why, but it's, I don't know. It wasn't so much that as the way the game went. Or maybe somebody got hurt. Maybe the backup got hurt or something. But it was, so I'm not going to slap a number on it.
You do anticipate he will play at least some?
I do. I'm optimistic about that, yeah.
So there's Spags talking about Chris Jones. We'll have some more coming up. One other note I would like to just express on fantasy football. I think it's stupid when the kicker that you're facing in fantasy football kicks a 61-yard field goal, especially when our mutual friend Alok has that kicker on his team against me, and for some reason, because of our rules, that kick is worth 6 points. That was like a touchdown. And so right before halftime, that was a knee right into my groin.
Not okay!
Stupid. That's how you know early on the Thursday night you're going to lose in fantasy football, when the opposing kicker nails a 61-yarder against you. So stupid. Take a break. Back after this on WHB.
You're tuned into the Border Patrol with Stephen St. John and Nate Bukaty on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hello, Kansas City. Stephen St. John here for DraftKings Sportsbook. Well,
We would have supported them.
for the price. For the price, I barely got one from me.
Okay.
So I can tell you that.
I thought you had an
I had to get a game day polo for Selena's also, so she could.
I thought you had an unlimited budget for cool gear because after the World Series,
you know
in
what?
14
No.
and 15, it seemed like you were able to find some money.
Yeah, that budget was maxed out on credit cards that later had a beautiful woman yelling at me. So that's nothing wrong with that. All right, so we've got lots to talk about, and we got to get to all of it. We just left off listening to Spags talking about Chris Jones and how he looked yesterday. Before I get your thoughts on Chris Jones, let me play one more short clip from Spags. He was asked about Chris Jones and Chris Jones' commitment to being in shape. That's at least what Chris Jones has said. He's ready. He's in football shape. Here's what Spags had to say.
We were saying this when he wasn't here, that the one thing we knew, that when, hopefully he did get back, that we knew he'd be in shape. That's just not his, he's not the big fat guy, like some of the big guys are, and you worry about that. I mean, he's the real deal. He's blessed with some talent, so he looks like he's in good shape to me.
I'm right here, Coach. You don't have
I was talking about, inside tackling.
So let's wrap this up so we could move forward finally with football and not deal with the off the field drama that the Chris Jones saga was. Let's start first with, once you found out that Chris Jones reported and what the terms were, what was your reaction?
Surprised that it all just came under the same contract. Felt very good about the Chiefs, and I don't think there's a lot of downside because I don't think Chris Jones is the type of human being that is going to get away from his core value, and that is he's a football player. He wants to play. He loves the team. He loves the Chiefs. I remember the last time he had a contract come up, most people had written him off in the offseason like he was leaving. I remember being on this show saying, I'm not so sure they can't work something out. The Chiefs are very good at this. And at the end of the day, I think he wants to be a part of it. His agents will be telling him, here's a good strategy. He might listen to them for a while. You may not be happy with the advice he took. He may not have played this thing perfectly. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs end up being in a very good situation where they aren't committing dollars to him against the salary cap of the Chiefs' future that ends up really hurting them. So 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line, you've given him all this money, and he kind of runs out of juice. That's not happening. Now, will he be a Chief next year? Most people will say, well, there's no chance he's going to be a Chief now because he went through all of this and they didn't give him a long-term contract, so obviously he's going to be upset. End of the year, he's going to sign a big free agent contract. Well, maybe that's all true, but that's still better than the Chiefs paying him too much and having a salary cap issue with an old player in the future, and they get him to make the Super Bowl run this year. I don't think there'll be any ramifications going backwards. He's going to be ready to start playing when he gets in football shape. I think that does matter. Just because he's been in shape doesn't mean he's in football shape. But in the NFL, you don't ask your defensive linemen to play a whole game anyway. It is off the boards. They only play, 60% of the plays? So how close can he get to being 60% available? Pretty close, probably, depending on how the game flows. So I obviously am going to be holding my breath for injury because when guys don't start up at the right time and work through fall camp and do it the right way, I think it does create an additional risk of getting injured. So as long as he can make it through the next 3 weeks and not be a hip-hold hammy or a worse injury, then I will feel comfortable with the Chiefs are. So I think the Chiefs just came out of this thing as a real winner, and he will not be a locker room problem. I don't worry about that for 1 second because that's the thing you worry about is now we know about what Tyrann Mathieu thought that year that he didn't get rewarded with the contract. And his feelings were hurt the whole time. Not so much that he was mad at the Chiefs, it's just that he's like, I can't believe they didn't commit to me. No one's committed me to my life. I mean, it was a psychological big thing, right? I don't think that's Chris Jones. I think he's going to be coming in, hugging the guys and going, let's get to work. And I thought watching that game for him, he paid the highest ticket of anybody in the arena, right? $1.1 million to sit up there with his agents and watch the Chiefs play Detroit. Plus, I think he wants to play. So he had to give in and get going, and I think the Chiefs come out, if not a winner, not hurt in any way.
So Chris Jones will be back. We'll see how much he plays. Travis Kelce's still up in the air. And I do think it's of note that in Jacksonville on Sunday, it is, I'm looking at the forecast right now, mixed clouds and sun with scattered thunderstorms. Chance of rain is 60%. And so am I being too much of a nervous Nelly, wondering if they should just err on the side of caution and take it slow with Travis Kelce and take the long-term approach? Or if they think he's ready, who cares if it's raining, put him back out there and let's go?
I think your nervousness is worthy of thinking about. Can you hold him out for a game when he is available to play? No. But it scares the hell out of you. I know this is another discussion, a tangent discussion. Somehow Aaron Rodgers getting hurt has got people talking about grass versus field turf. I don't know how that all came about. It doesn't make sense to me, but people would rather play on grass, get it. But no one is talking about the other issues of grass. What happens if it rains and it gets a little slick and muddy that field turf doesn't get slick and muddy? These grass fields are not perfectly manicured. They look really good on TV, but if you get down there, sometimes there's like a spot of sand that's a pretty big spot. And when I played on grass, it's like, this is inconsistent. Like,
Arizona, just look at Arizona. That's a
terrible
Arizona.
Grass field. I mean, this is not an easy story for me to say, oh, grass is better. Perfectly manicured grass with great weather is fun and great for football players to play on. That's fine. But having a consistent surface is also really good, and field turf plays as close to grass as possible. This isn't old turf, but that's getting off to another subject. Point is that if it were raining on field turf, I would feel more comfortable with Travis Kelce's footing being more consistent, rain or no rain. You put the grass component in there, and these fields are really well done, so it shouldn't get muddy, it shouldn't get slippery. But, man, one step, that's what hyperextension is. It's just that one step where your foot, generally you put your foot down and instead of sticking, it slides, and all of a sudden, because of your body weight, your knee bends a little bit the wrong direction, right? That's the hyperextension. doesn't that bring a little concern in? Now, I think Travis Kelce is such a pro to get away from being nervous because you have to play him. If he's available, this game's too important. You can't spit in the face of the NFL and just say, oh, we're the Chiefs. We're dominant. We're going to be dominant forever. We got Patrick Mahomes. We got Andy Reid. 0-2. Who cares? No. You don't start the season 0-2 and just say, who cares? So Travis Kelce, if he's available to play, you got to let him play. But what I thought was interesting in his podcast is when he said he lost a little concentration when he got injured, that he was kind of just probably finishing off the practice. Like, here we go. Now, that's his mindset. I don't know how that works out, but it seemed to think that he said he wasn't concentrating as much. He will be locked in on every step, which gives you a lot of hope that he can protect his body. He knows his body so well. So I guess we don't have to be too scared, but if it's rainy and slick, or you have, how about a lightning delay? When you start and stop, I think that's hard for NFL players. Baseball guys get used to it, right? But starting and stopping for football players, you can say, oh, they're used to it, but that creates firing yourself back up, warming yourself to a sweat, then waiting around, then trying to do it again. And so any of those variables, when he's got a hyperextension, would make me a little concerned.
Saturday, it's also supposed to rain Saturday during the day down in Jacksonville. Some showers in the afternoon Saturday night. I'll probably take a shower in Jacksonville. But a stray shower or thunderstorms possible Saturday night. Then on Sunday, as I said, scattered thunderstorms, 60% chance of rain. So it looks like it could be a wet weekend in Jacksonville. Let me play one clip from Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, number 10, Marco. Here is Matt Nagy when he was asked if he thinks Travis Kelce will play this week.
Again, I think that's a Coach Reed, Brett Veach, all that. I mean, I thought he looked good yesterday in practice, which was great to see. But again, all of that is probably hourly, daily, whatever you want to say. And we as coaches and offensively, we just got to be prepared for both sides, just like it was last week.
Nate Bukaty, step on the scale and weigh in on this topic, please.
I mean, I totally agree with you, Stan, that you can't afford to just write off any game if you're the Chiefs. And an 0-2 start is not ideal for anybody. The numbers show that your chances of making the playoffs go way down if you're 0-2. But at the same time, I remember the Bengals starting 0-2 last year and still being a team that was good enough to make it to the Super Bowl or at least get close. So I would not rule the Chiefs out if they go 0-2. It's hard to weigh in on somebody's injury situation when you don't know exactly what their situation is, right? Nobody knows Travis Kelce's body like he does, and I don't have the information. I would certainly think they would be cautious in not putting him in a situation to injure the thing worse. You know, that's the only thing, because this season is a very long one ahead. You know, there's still 15 games after this one, and at his age, the fact that he has had knee problems early in his career, I'm thinking about my own life, but you know, I've had a couple of knee surgeries, and they were 17 years apart, but they were related. You know, they're on the same knee. All those kind of things. I just hope they're cautious enough about it that you want to have Travis Kelce healthy, and at the end of the season, hearing Aaron Borgman talked to us about the bone bruise idea and how long it really takes a bone bruise to heal. You know, he's going to be, if he plays this week, he's going to be playing hurt, so to speak. You know, he's not going to be fully healed, but of course we also know that when you're in the NFL, you're playing hurt pretty much every week.
But hopefully it's just pain tolerance.
Yeah.
And not something shaky.
Right, not stability.
Yeah, he's not lacking. Yeah. He shouldn't be lacking in stability.
Yeah,
we don't know the injury, but he shouldn't.
Yeah.
If it's just pain tolerance, and that's about himself and his brain. And
I was having a very interesting conversation with my wife about that concept of pain tolerance, and she's done a lot of studying about what pain actually is, and what it actually, when people say it's all in your head, that's literally true. That's what pain is. Pain is your brain interpreting information it's getting from somewhere in the body. And when Patrick Mahomes, when you watch the quarterback, what did he keep saying over and over and over again after he sprained his ankle? He said afterwards, I just kept telling myself, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. And my wife was telling me, that's literally what he did, and that literally works. You can actually convince you can override your brain basically and convince it that you're not in pain right now. And that's what being tough actually is a lot of times. And,
Dalton in Roadhouse, pain don't hurt.
Pain don't hurt, right? And so, yeah, if it's just that, if it's
Roadhouse,
yeah, see, it all comes full circle. But if it's just that for Travis Kelce, you know, and you do it for 3 hours, you don't do it for 24/7. Mahomes was in a lot of pain when he got done with the game, but I just got to do it for 3 hours. Convince my brain to ignore the information it's getting for 3 hours, and it'll work. But yeah, the knee stability part, what you're talking about there, Stan, is the bigger part. If it's a situation where he plants his foot and the sod gives out a little bit, does he have the stability to where it doesn't turn into a serious injury? As long as it's that, man, get him out there and play. You know, he obviously showed, and we probably should get to this part of it. He showed it was clear how much they missed him.
Oh yeah.
Last weekend, more than it was clear how much they missed him.
How much I missed him,
right.
To be honest with you.
And this is a dangerous game. This is a dangerous NFL game. Now, every game in the NFL is worth looking at because what a pretty significant line is, 7 points?
Yeah.
So, obviously, it should be within a touchdown. That's a play here or there. So, it's pretty idiotic to act like, oh, this is a competitive NFL game. No lie. They kicked the ball off. Every NFL game should be competitive. But this team is dangerous, I think, in Jacksonville. This is a tough sequence for the Chiefs to have lost to Detroit and now heading off to Jacksonville. I think they're going to have to play well to win this game. Play one of their better games. Can't be just a Chiefs game. It's going to have to be one of their better Chiefs games because Jacksonville's lined up very well. They played the Chiefs recently. They're not intimidated by them. They learned from them. It's intimidating when you play football and you can watch tape all you want. When those guys come out to start warming up and you see the real helmets and the real players, and you're not as good as them and they're the elite, it makes a giant difference. That warm-up seems like about 5 hours instead of 45 minutes because those dudes just act like they know what they're doing, and you're sitting there questioning yourself and going, I'm not as good as him, and wow, I didn't realize that guy was that big, and wow, did you see Patrick Mahomes throw that pass? And you just intimidate yourself. Jacksonville had that happen, but with their head coach coming in, he's been around the Chiefs. I think he gave them good information. He goes, we're going to shoot everything we have. Surprise onside kick. Remember that in regular season? Go for 4th down. He just said, guys, we're not as good as them, but I know them, so let's just give it a shot. And that relaxed Jacksonville. And I thought that's when they turned into a real team. I thought that's when Trevor Lawrence became a guy who could be a playoff quarterback and come back against the Chargers. And then they came into playoffs as grown-ups. They're a little Cincinnati. They're not Cincinnati yet, but they're a growing version towards Cincinnati. That's the kind of team they are.
You know what's interesting to me? Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl winning head coach, and I don't feel like he gets the juice that other Super Bowl winning coaches do. And in my experience of interviewing him when he was with the Chiefs the first time around, when he was offensive coordinator, and then when he was at the 101 Awards for Coach of the Year, and talking to him about that playoff game, and then he sat down for a long time with Jason Anderson out in Lake Tahoe at the American Century Championship. Stan, I think you know what I mean when I say like you'll hear certain coaches talk or interview them, and then you just say, oh, he's got that it factor. That's a stud. That's a guy, you know. And then sometimes you talk to a coach and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna work, or I don't know if he's gonna be successful. But I've always felt that about Doug Peterson, and even talking to him even more and hearing him and talking to him at the 101 Awards, I'm super impressed by him. But how come he doesn't get the juice that other Super Bowl champion coaches do? Because I think he's a stud when it comes to head coaches.
I disrespected him because I thought anybody who coaches under Andy Reid, if the three of us coached under Andy Reid, we would look good, okay? They would be talking well about us because he won't let us fail. And when he went on to Philadelphia and started saying that Andy let him call plays for what was that? He lost a lot of credibility with me when he's trying to make up some story. Or I call the plays in the second half. Like would any team that's elite have a second half plan that wasn't preseason? No. So you either call plays the whole game or you didn't. I'm going with you didn't. So, but then they run you out of Philadelphia so fast. He got cycled out. You start saying, well, Philadelphia is where he won the Super Bowl, and he's no longer the coach there. So I think everyone could join the disrespect. So going in, I think there's a lack of respect, and then quickly he cycled out, and everyone's just said, oh, that's a cute little Philly special. Bye-bye. But he won a Super Bowl.
With Nick Foles.
And Carson Wentz. Because Carson Wentz was almost MVP of the league before Nick Foles took over.
And now he can't get a job.
He can't get a job. So think about that. I thought he was a above-average NFL coach. And that's not a big hurdle for me to get over because I've said many times this group of 32 coaches the last few years has been as weak as any time in my life across the NFL, head coaches. But putting him above the midpoint was one thing. But then I watched him work through Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor came in the NFL like a lot of rookies, and he wasn't dominating. He wasn't, he came from Clemson, but there was work to be done. Things are too easy at Clemson. He was given a silver platter, like Watson had already brought him to a national championship level.
And he walked into a disaster with Urban Meyer there.
Exactly. And he put this whole thing together. I'm very impressed with him. I would now move him up, and you start going through the list, he may be a top 10 coach in the National Football League, but no one says that about him. That's why I'm saying to the fans here, if you're not watching Jacksonville, if that doesn't ring a bell with you about being a good football team, this is a legitimate coach, and now a legitimate quarterback. And Etienne's a legitimate running back, and the defense is playing well. And I just think that they are at that perfect point where they're dangerous. And that's when teams are really hard to beat at home, when there's a buzz around Jacksonville. Remember, it wasn't very long ago at the top of the stadium, the upper deck, it's not a 100,000-seat stadium, and the upper deck was what? A big banner? Remember that? There's a buzz around Jacksonville right now, like, hey, man, let's go. The Chiefs are coming in town. And they have nothing to lose. If the Chiefs beat them by 14, no one's going to be down on the Jaguars. It's okay, go on to the next week. But if they can compete and find a way to win, how excited will that region be? So they're at the perfect spot. And again, I say this, they've seen the Chiefs 2 different times in Arrowhead. They're not intimidated by him. They know what the task is. They may not be good enough to do it, but now he's not telling them, I got to fake field goals and go for 4th down. Guys, you know what plays you got to execute against the Chiefs. You know when it's 3rd down, you got to deal with Kelsey and Mahomes. You know what that looks like. You get it done, we win. Don't get it done, we lose. But there's no reason why we can't be in the game all game long. You know how to play against the Chiefs. You're ready for this. And I think they are. I think this is going to be a really interesting game.
We will take a break. Back after this on WHB.
You're tuned into the Border Patrol with Stephen St. John and Nate Bukaty on Sports Radio 810 WHB.